here in Las Vegas, Nevada, covering Freedom Fest. We always talk with our friends at the Independent Women's Forum. This is Hadley Manning, Health Policy Director for IWF. Good to see you, Hadley.
Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by.
Oh, absolutely. We have Julie Gunlock every week. We love you guys at IWF. You talk about healthcare. How great is that Obamacare? It's a smash, right?
No, I'm a woman, and I just don't know what I would do without Obamacare.
And by the way, there's a war. You're committing a war on yourself as a right-leaning woman. I mean, really, what's going on?
It's scary, the war on women. I can't even leave my house. I'm so afraid they're dropping bombs on me. It's a war. That's just such a bad misuse of that term. You know, I spoke to a woman one time whose husband is actually a member of our armed forces, and she says, no, what my husband's doing overseas, that's war. But this is not a war on women, you know. And I've spoken with women here at Freedom Fest who are from other countries where you wouldn't believe the civil rights that women have to fight for in other countries. I mean, I think American women sometimes take for granted how free we really are. I mean, I'm a freedom fighter. I'm here at Freedom Fest. I want to be more free. I want to defend freedom so that the next generation of Americans can enjoy it. But really, we can't say that we're not free in the United States. We can't say that we're oppressed or that we don't have civil rights or that we don't have equal rights with men. I mean, asking for special privileges for women is one thing, but to ask for equality, in many senses, we already have it under the law.
All right, so all joking aside, Obamacare is an unmitigated disaster. Of course, you know that. You preach that. Summarize how bad it is.
Summarize how bad it is. Well, what we're seeing now is really just the very beginning. It takes large-scale change, not just in our health insurance system, but eventually will affect our medical system as well, because depending on your point of view, you know, I would argue that medical services are something that doctors and other healthcare professionals provide, and they have to be paid for providing those services. I mean, it's a financial question of how do we pay for this stuff. On the other hand, some people would argue that it's a right, and since healthcare is a right, the government has to pay for it. The government has to ensure that we all have access to it. And those are two different schools of thought, you know. So the question about how is certainly an important one. I understand, you know, there's a lot of people out there who supported Obamacare because maybe they thought things would get better. You know, things were bad before Obamacare in our healthcare system. But Obamacare, unfortunately, took all the things that were bad, sort of doubled down on the same direction. You know, people may not realize, but government was really heavily involved, even at the federal level in our healthcare system, before Obamacare. Now with more government intrusion, the inevitable result is less individual choice. We're seeing it now, and maybe you can't choose the insurance plan that you want, can't choose the doctor that you want, but in the long term, I worry about where are we going to go if you can't choose the treatment that you want, or you can't have it in a timely manner. The management of these resources in the most efficient way is most important because human lives are at stake. You know, and the most efficient way to, you know, sort of distribute resources is to not distribute them at all, but to allow market forces to put them in the hands of the right people.
You know, of course, Hobby Lobby was a gigantic story, still continues to be discussed. Aside from the contraception part of it and the whole, that side of it, talk about it as a defeat for the Obama administration in terms of kind of like just chipping away at the law.
Well, it certainly made people more upset than I ever expected.
Yeah.
You know, the reaction from liberals to this case has just been bizarre and off the wall, and there's been a lot of intellectual dishonesty, I'm afraid, about what the case really means. But absolutely, I mean, this is the first time I've been following, you know, Obamacare since its inception. This is the first time I feel like people on the side of freedom actually had a small victory in the Hobby Lobby case. So what does it mean for the Obama administration? I mean, they have to admit that at least in this case, even the Supreme Court, 5 out of the 9 justices said you went too far. And that's good. That's why we have 3 branches of government, to have those checks and balances. And then they say, you know, well, Congress can just appropriate more money for programs that fund maybe emergency contraceptives that Hobby Lobby disagrees with. That's great. These decisions should be made in the light of day by Congress, not by regulatory agencies like HHS. I mean, that's so many decisions are being made outside of the halls of Congress, and those are our representatives. That's another check as well. If they don't do what we expect, if they don't do their jobs, we have elections for things like that.
Talking about Congress, and you know, we talk about exemptions for so many people. It's, you know, from unions on down, it's just there's so many exemptions. Talk about what Senator Ron Johnson's up to, and some other ways that legislators are fighting against this.
Right. Well, this was in the news when it first happened. Unfortunately, it's kind of dropped out of the news cycle, but the President and the Office of Personnel Management worked together to create basically a special deal for members of Congress and their staff. And the special deal says, even though the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, has it in the letter of the law that you have to access health insurance just like ordinary other citizens, the special deal for you is you can keep a federal health benefit, or we'll pay for you to buy your insurance in the Small Business Exchange in Washington, D.C. And it's not an entire pay for, but it's 75% of their premiums, which definitely cushions them from the pain that many other Americans are feeling as they purchase their health insurance under Obamacare. So Senator Johnson filed a lawsuit about this, and Independent Women's Voice, our C4 affiliate, has been very supportive of his effort to scale back this exemption for Washingtonians in Congress and their staff members. I mean, I don't see what's worse than our own legislators having a special privilege. They didn't vote on this. This was yet another decision that was made behind closed doors. And sure, I'd like for somebody to pay 75% of my Obamacare premium, you know, but I don't work in the halls of Congress.
The average listener, viewer, the average citizen, you know, watching this and listening to this right now, it seems there's almost an air of inevitability to Obamacare, and no matter how many Hobby Lobbies are out there, it doesn't seem to be a lot of appetite for Republicans to overturn it as much as there was. Is it a fait accompli, or is this something that people can really fight and overturn, if not all of it, some of it?
Oh, I definitely think it's not here to stay as it is. You know, laws change. Laws have we've always been capable of changing laws in this country. So I don't think we should throw our hands up and say, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. We got to continue to fight the good fight. And what we really deeply believe in is that individuals should have choice in health care. You know, so yes, there are other Hobby Lobbies out there. There's over 300 plaintiffs who have filed similar cases to the Hobby Lobby case. But it doesn't just boil down to should you be free to make moral decisions or religious decisions, but decisions that are personal that affect your health care. Maybe it doesn't have to be a religious reason that you get an exemption. We should get exemptions just on the basis that healthcare is a personal and individual thing, and the one-size-fits-all approach just doesn't work in healthcare in a country like America, where we have over 310 million people with different preferences and views. So no, I don't think we should throw in the towel yet. I certainly think that, you know, there has been a lot of discouragement, and policies do tend to enjoy what's called a status quo advantage. You know, for years before Obamacare, we had bad healthcare policy that enjoyed a status quo advantage. And right now, unfortunately, people who are maybe on the fence or not that informed, they just think, well, Obamacare's the law, so it's the status quo. Why change the status quo? And people do tire of having health policy or any public policy change year after year after year. I mean, it's bad for business when you can't have certainty in your public policy. But on the other hand, I do think that there's hope that Americans will start to understand that it's not just the law of Obamacare that's bad, but it's the whole philosophy that undergirds it, that government should be in control of this.
Hadley, Manning, thanks for your time. Where do people find you online? Where do people read and support what you guys are up to?
You know, it's IWF.org, and they can come be a Facebook friend of ours on Facebook, Independent Women's Forum, and on Twitter, we're at IWF, so come join the conversation online.
That's good. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time, Hadley.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.